Welcome to Storytime Digital Media. I'm Megan Fox, and I'm here with Kevin Dujon, and we are back sooner than we thought we would be because we have an update to the Carla Burkhart College of DuPage scandal lawsuit, SLAPP suit, strategic lawsuit against public participation that Carla Burkhart filed against the Edgar County Watchdogs and Adam Angievsky, and probably others that I haven't even noticed because this woman just wants to slap out at anybody who talks about her. But there is an update, and I can't believe what we have found. But it appears that Carla Burkhart has actually lied to her own attorney, because in the filing, her attorney has written that she was appointed to the board, the College of DuPage Foundation Board, in June of 2012. But a review of the public minutes of the College of DuPage Foundation Board say that on April 19th, 2012, the minutes say that she was introduced to the board that night as their new board member, along with one other person. And that was in April of 2012, and that's in their own minutes. And she is claiming that she didn't become a board member until June. What else is interesting about this is that she got her contract for $90,000 in April of 2012. So she received the contract for the work, for the graphics work, on the same month that she was put on the foundation board. Kevin, isn't this a little fishy?
Oh, that's incredibly fishy. And so, you know, her lawyer, this guy's interesting. So this guy, his name is Joshua Fegans, and he's with the firm Griffin and Williams. So I'm always curious about these guys that file these SLAPP lawsuits. And in studying these, strategic litigation against public participation, these lawsuits are never filed by reputable attorneys. They're never filed by people or law firms that have a good reputation. It's always, the bottom of the barrel attorneys file these kind of lawsuits. So this lawsuit that Carla Burkhart filed against the Edgar County Watchdogs and Adam Angievsky and these other people, I just knew even before I looked this guy up that what I was going to find. And of course, you go right to this Griffin Williams webpage, and there's a picture of him, and he's clearly a dingleberry. He's a little goober. You look at where he went to law school, and it says the John Marshall Law School. Now, law schools are ranked in tiers. So there's first tier, there's second tier, there's third tier, there's fourth tier, and then there's John Marshall Law School. So, first tier is the best, like Harvard and Yale and all those guys. And second tier is, really good public schools, like Ohio State Law School, whatever. Third tier, then fourth tier is like law schools that are in Key West, Florida or whatever. And as I said, then there's John Marshall Law School in Chicago. That, will take anyone that can print their name correctly in the bubbles on the LSAT test. You get into John Marshall Law School.
Well, this is the guy who we believe should be disbarred for even filing this lawsuit. I think there should be a law that says attorneys who file lawsuits like this, that are frivolous like this, and that seek to silence the public's right to their First Amendment speech, should be disbarred, should be barred from ever practicing law again after doing something as egregious as this. This lawsuit is full of lies.
This guy, Megan, I don't know if you like those Simpsons, The Simpsons, the animated show.
Yeah.
With the lady with the blue hair, Simpsons.
Yes.
So this on The Simpsons, they have a shady lawyer. His name is Lionel Hutz. I don't know if you remember that. There hasn't been a character on the show for many years, but this Joshua Fegans reminds me of that Lionel Hutz, just shameless, no ethics, that kind of individual.
It is shameless, though, to file a lawsuit that's full of so many inaccuracies.
On the Edgar County Watchdogs, website, I have been they have many articles about this Carla Burkhart and all this stuff. One of the ones that was super interesting was they have some emails that this Joshua Fegans was involved in, emailing someone or another. They must have been emailing somebody at College of DuPage because John and Kirk, they were able to get these emails via FOIA requests. And in these emails, Joshua Fegans and someone else are talking, and they're saying, how Carla was going to file a lawsuit against the watchdogs, and they wanted to get a injunction to keep the watchdogs from talking about her. And that's the thing that really makes me angry. And that's the thing that makes me look at him as a dingleberry and as a Lionel Hutz kind of an attorney, because think about that. This is America, and this is the freedom of speech, and they're trying to go get an injunction from a judge to silence the Edgar County watchdogs.
Yeah, I'm talking about Carla. Now, this is a picture of Carla Burkhart. She has several really hilarious pictures up on Facebook that she likes to post of herself. This is the woman we're talking about, who thinks she's a dictator, like a North Korean dictator, I think, because I just want to say that after we did yesterday's broadcast, somebody contacted me to warn me not to talk about Carla Burkhart because she would sue me. So I shouldn't talk about Carla Burkhart because, there will be consequences. And I'm thinking, who does this woman think she is? Kim Jong-il? Is she now back and shot too because I'm talking about her? Look, lady, it's a free country.
Look at that picture. It looks like she lives in the back of a van. I don't know what that picture's of, but she's there and she has her wig on. I don't know. But yeah, this is this thing that some of these people are such prima donnas that they think that they can threaten people or they can scare people with a slap, or their lawyer can say, I'm going to get an injunction to make you stop talking about me. In America, you cannot restrict someone's future speech. You cannot go to a judge and get an injunction and say, you can't talk about Carla Burkhart and the bad things that she does. That's not how things work. There's this commercial. Did you ever see that commercial where the old lady is putting pictures up on her wall, literally in her living room, and
yes,
I'm putting things on my wall, like on Facebook, and the other woman says, that's not how that works. That's not how any of this works.
No, and here she is again, rolling around on the floor in her yellow pants, the famous picture. This is Carla Burkhart, who thinks she can sue anybody who talks about her. I think it's interesting that there's this widespread fear now that if you say anything about this woman, she's going to sue you for $8 million. Well, good luck to her on that, because that lawsuit's going to get thrown out because it's full of lies. I can't believe that her lawyer, we already illustrated yesterday that she's suing for John and Kirk for saying that she represented herself as an architect when she did in fact represent herself as an architect, and it's in black and white on a contract. And now in the same lawsuit, her attorney has lied, unwittingly or not, about when she was appointed or when she was on the board. It says in the lawsuit she wasn't on the board until June of 2012. But in reality, in the minutes of the meetings on April 19th in 2012, she was announced as the new board member. So is she lying to her own attorney, or is her attorney too stupid to check the facts? Listen, this is another reason why we have a right to talk about Carla Burkhart. We have a right.
Let's tell people for a second why that's important, the thing about when she came on the board. I think people might not understand that that's a little point, but it's an important point.
Well, because she's trying to say that there's no coincidence, it's just a coincidence that she got the contract, because she's saying she got this contract in April of 2012 and that it had nothing to do whatsoever with her being put on the board that happened in June. Okay, even if that is the case, that she wasn't put on the board till June, which it doesn't appear to be, I still would say that's baloney. Of course, that's why you got the contract. But if she did get the contract and appointed to the board in the same month, it looks even worse for her. Here she is again, posting selfies on Facebook in her bathing suit. This is Carla Burkhart. She doesn't think anyone should be allowed to talk about her.
If what you're saying is true, and if the minutes from that board meeting in April show that she was made a board member then she has not told the truth in her lawsuit that she filed, because in her lawsuit she's saying that she got this contract to do work in April of 2012, but then was made a board member later, and so that seems like that has not been represented correctly.
It's not been represented correctly. You want to hear another head scratcher? This one's incredible. This is something I found out between yesterday and today also. Between 2012 and 2014, so right when she was appointed to the board, and the next 2 years, She made no less than, she got no less than $200,000 in over 2 contracts with the College of DuPage. Now, somehow, mysteriously, through change orders, those $200,000 contracts became $600,000 contracts. She was awarded $600,000 for 2 contracts that were supposed to be worth $200,000 total, but there was some change order, funny banana business going on with the order that became from $200,000 to $600,000. So we're not talking about, at first I thought she only got like $90,000 and then $16,000. Oh no, this is going beyond. And then she was also billed, let me get this right. She was billed as a subcontractor, or she was paid as a subcontractor, another $120,000 on another College of DuPage contractor's bill. Okay, right? So this was White Construction, who the owner of just happens to be a board member as well. So she was paid as a subcontractor on another contract, and these are all no bid contracts. They're just handing them out to their board members like candy.
Right, and then it doesn't seem like there's any work product that comes out of this, because nowhere is there a portfolio showing what work she did. You know, I was really curious about her business since yesterday, so I looked up on the state of Illinois' website, and it's ilsos.gov, G-O-V, so it's the Illinois Secretary of State's website. You can put in a search. It's for the Corporation File Detail Report. You type in Hurricane Graphics. Once again, you have to spell that how she spells it. It's really bizarre. It's Herricane. When it comes up, it shows file number 569-27697. And this is her active corporation report. That type of corporation is domestic BCA. It says that she first registered this in 1992. This new report has an annual report filing date of 5/22/2015 for the year 2015. And here's where things get interesting. So she does have this business registered with the state. The president and name and address is Carla Burkhart at 1275 West Roosevelt Road, West Chicago 60185. So somebody then sent me a message today, and they said, FYI, Carla Burkhart's supposed business that was located on Roosevelt Road in West Chicago didn't even have their name located anywhere at the location. There was another business located at that address called Advantage Sign Installation Company, and that is at 1275 West Roosevelt Road, number 112, West Chicago, Illinois, 60185. So the same address that Carla Burkhart claims that her business, Hurricane Graphics, it's actually not that. If you go to the business, this person was saying what's actually there is something called Advantage Sign Company.
I'm starting to think that we need to take a field trip over to Roosevelt Road and
see what's there.
Take a video of what this supposed Hurricane Graphics is. Can I also mention what came up in the Tribune? Because this is another reason why I can't believe that this woman had the nerve to sue John and Kirk. Why hasn't she sued the Tribune? Why hasn't she sued the multitude of news sources that have talked about her and have the Tribune identified 7 companies that got no bid contracts in the millions of dollars to foundation board members, and including her, and they wrote about her. So why isn't she suing the Chicago Tribune for reporting the exact same thing that John and Kirk are reporting? Why is she suing them and not the Chicago Tribune?
Right.
I mean, this woman is out of her mind if she thinks that she can stop people from talking about her. I think she went after John and Kirk because she thinks they're small enough potatoes. I mean, the Tribune's got lawyers on call, so she would get nowhere with that. But she thinks that suing John and Kirk is an easy mark because they're small potatoes, according to her.
Well, and so once again, we go back to the lawyer. So that Joshua Fegans guy, I can imagine a situation where that Carla's sitting down with him and they say, okay, well, I want to lash out at someone and I want to do this. Maybe that Joshua Fegans is like, hey, don't sue the Chicago Tribune because they have big in-house counsel. Maybe John and Kirk won't be able to find a lawyer to represent them, or maybe they'll have to just settle. So I think there's some strategy involved in who you decide to sue, that a disreputable lawyer would sit and think, oh, I'm gonna just sue someone that maybe I can get a quick shakedown and make them settle, and they won't be able to find an attorney to go all the way. That's what I think happens with these lawsuits, because these SLAPP lawsuits are not meant to even go to discovery. They're meant to just be something that is filed against someone, that person gets scared, and then that person has to just, really quickly settle because they can't afford to go to discovery. And Megan, let me tell you something. This Carla Burkhart is one of the stupidest people in the world from what I can see, because there's so many fishy and suspicious things going on with this Hurricane Graphics that doesn't even have a website, this Advantage sign thing that has now popped up. This woman is the dumbest person in the world to have filed a lawsuit against anyone related to her business, because
I know, because it's now made everybody's interested. People like us are interested, whereas
not only that, Megan, you have to think about the lawsuit, the discovery. She has now sued John and Kirk and Adam Andrzejewski and these other people, and when discovery happens, and that's where in the legal process where you get to produce documents. So remember, she's a private citizen who can't be FOIA'd. You cannot do a FOIA request on a private citizen, but in a lawsuit, in discovery, you can make that person produce all kinds of emails, all kinds of financial records. This stupid idiot has opened herself up now to be essentially FOIA-able, that now you can do.
Right.
And they're going to find all kind of stuff on this woman and everything that she has been involved in, and she has done that to herself.
Right. Well, and she's also bringing more attention to her and to herself, and she doesn't want people talking about her, but then she files a lawsuit that makes people talk about her.
Well, that's the Streisand effect. Tell people what that is.
Yeah, the Streisand effect, where Barbara Streisand made a big deal about people taking aerial photos of her house or something, and whereas maybe 2 people had seen it, when she made a big deal out of it, it made the news, and then 100 million people had seen it. So it did the opposite of what she intended it to do, right?
Right, and it was a coastal erosion study in California. So these research scientists had taken photos of the entire California coast, to document erosion. And Barbara Streisand decided she was a princess and she didn't want her Malibu mansion on the beachside, included. She didn't want a photo of that to be visible. And before she sued these people, maybe 1,000 people had ever seen the California erosion photos, and even people who had seen the photos wouldn't have known that was Barbara Streisand's mansion. Then Barbara Streisand sued, and the day after that, it was the big story that Barbara Streisand has sued to quash this photo. Well, of course, millions of people around the world then wanted to see that photo. So that stupid idiot drew attention to herself and drew attention to what she didn't want people to talk about by filing a lawsuit. Now, this stupid idiot, Carla Burkhart, the Barbara Streisand of Illinois, she has decided that she is a pretty princess. Even though she's 50 years old, she's rolling around the floor in yellow pants and having pictures of herself taken that are bizarre. She has decided that people can't talk about her and can't ask questions about the bad things that she does. And so she has filed this SLAPP lawsuit. And I hope now millions of people across the country look into what she's doing and start asking these questions about this business, this supposed business that doesn't even have a website. And since yesterday, I got really curious, and I thought, let me just type in on the Google, on the internet via the computer. I typed in Chicago graphic design to see what would come up, different firms, because I wanted to see, how does a graphic design firm in the Chicago area represent itself and market itself, okay? And I found, many firms popped up right away. I just went to the first one that came up. It was, We Create Design. So it has a cute little name, WECRE, the number 8, and then design.com. Megan, I'm blown away. So this this website of theirs is fantastic. They have right in the corner, they have the design team, our capabilities, you know, our portfolio, cool clients. You know, you click on any of these things and it shows you samples of their work. It shows you all the different logos they've designed. It shows you all the different print campaigns, displays they've made, signs they've done.
There's a whole list of their actual clients and what they've done for their clients.
And you click on, you know, another one I saw was, it was called Firebelly Design, Chicago Graphic Design. I click on there. They don't have as nice of a website, but they sure have a professional looking, really nice one.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that We Create, they hit a home run. This is just a, you know, a base hit or something, but they still show all their clients. They show all the different kinds of things, the work that they've done. My point is, if you look up any graphic design company's name, you will find a website that shows their portfolio, their list of clients. It'll show you their pricing. It'll have an option for you to email to get a quote, all that kind of stuff. Carla Burkhart has none of that for that Hurricane Graphics. And I hope people out there are suspicious about that.
I agree. And here's a picture of her attorney, Joshua Fegan.
Yeah, that's him. That's the little dingleberry. And see, it says John Marshall Law School.
There he is.
That's like going to law school in the back of a van down by the river and having a hobo be the professor.
Well, there he is, the man who filed the worst lawsuit we've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
That just is full of total lies. It's full of lies about John and Kirk. It's full of lies about his own client.
Every count in the lawsuit, I don't know how many there are. There must be at least 8, because each one it says at the end, and $1 million for punitive damages. So every count accrues to $8 million that they're suing for, supposedly damaging this business that really doesn't exist. Yes, there's
it doesn't seem to exist for any other client but College of DuPage. Right.
And it's so funny that this little dingleberry did this. Do you see his little smug face? He looks like a Simpsons character. He really does.
Well, it makes me wonder, what are they teaching them at the John Marshall Law School that it's a good idea? That it's a good idea to sue people to shut them up? I mean, who was he not in class the day they taught about anti-SLAPP laws? Because this is illegal. This kind of lawsuit that he has filed is illegal. It is against the law to file a suit to silence public participation. There is no other way to do
that is that Citizen Protection Act. So it is illegal because that Citizen Protection Act that is the law of the land here in Illinois. It says lawsuits like this can't be filed. So
exactly. So here this Joshua Fegans has clearly not read the law, the anti-SLAPP legislation or the Citizen Protection Act, because he has gone ahead and filed a lawsuit that can be, there's no other way to interpret it than as a SLAPP in trying to silence public participation, John and Kirk's right to speak out against the fraud that they see and the Tribune sees and the Herald sees and all these other media outlets see. There, and Adam Angievsky, his organization has been investigating this for years now. There is fraud and abuse at the College of DuPage. They have done illegal things. And this lawsuit is specifically designed to shut up the critics of the College of DuPage and of Carla Burkhart, because she thinks she's a princess or the princess of North Korea or something, where she can have people taken out back and shot, I guess, that she doesn't like, or taken to court and silenced through lawsuits. It's incredible to me.
And again, I think they just assume that, okay, I'm going to file this lawsuit, and lawsuits are so scary. And I think they just think that John and Kirk will cower in fear, and Adam Angievsky will just cower in fear, and these other people will just cower in fear and want to just settle. Because Megan, every lawyer assumes that whatever lawsuit they file will settle, because I don't know the figure, but 80-90% of lawsuits just settle because nobody wants to go to do a trial. So this little dingleberry thinks he's just going to file this for Carla, and that and then John and Kirk will just settle. Probably what will happen is the Dingleberry will go to their lawyer and say, oh, well, you can settle for no money. Just take down the articles. That's what this is all about. Is
right. That's what they're gonna go for. Remove Carla Burkhart and any mention of her from your website. That's what we want. That's what we really want. Well, good luck. Go to another country then, because in America, when you do stuff that's newsworthy, you get written about. That's just how it is. There is no way you cannot and you should not be able to sue people for writing about you when you land yourself in the news. Carla Burkhart has done enough to land herself in the Tribune and in the Daily Herald and in all over the place, including Illinois Leaks. And what's Fran Eaton's magazine? They're on there too. Illinois something Review. In the Illinois Review, on WLS. I mean, this is a big story, and it's absurd that this little Fegan's lawyer guy thinks that he can file this suit. It's ridiculous. What law firm hired him?
Yeah, this is this Griffin Williams law firm, and I think that this deserves public scorn, and I think that they need to be ridiculed and mocked. I'm looking on their website, Griffin Williams Law Firm. The main person is a man named Patrick Griffin. So his picture, he doesn't look like as much of a dingleberry, but he looks like he's a nice person, this man. He went to Northern Illinois University. That's a little bit better than going to John Marshall, but that might be a third-tier school. I've never heard of that. But
Northern is a pretty basic state school, but it's easy to get. It's really easy to get into. They take kids with low GPAs.
Right. So once again, it's not a first-tier or second-tier school. So these people are bottom dwellers. At the aquarium, there's those ugly fish always in a tank over to the side that are. And in the aquarium, they'll have like an old boot and a rusty tin can. Those are like the bottom-dwelling fish are in that exhibit. Everyone at this Griffin Williams law firm, that's their animal patronus, one of those bottom-dwelling mud gulper fish.
Well, they really.
That's who she found to represent her.
Well, it's interesting because when we look at these lawsuits and you look at the lawyers who bring these lawsuits, the SLAPP lawsuits in particular, they never are the best law firms in the city. They're always law firms you've never heard of, who seem to be trying to make a name for themselves, seem to be trying to, basically just get a settlement out of it. It is really upsetting to me that there is no punishment for doing something like this.
Well, these are shakedown artists, is what these are. These lawyers know that they don't have a case, and they just file these lawsuits because anyone can file a lawsuit. You can file a lawsuit against a ham sandwich, and you can file lawsuits alleging all kind of crazy stuff. And these dingleberry lawyers at this Griffin Williams disreputable firm, they file these lawsuits that have no merit, but they do it because their hope is that people will settle, and it's just a shakedown. To me, it's no different than someone like coming up to someone with a gun,
right?
And it's like a threat. And here, I pulled out my gun. I pulled out my SLAPP lawsuit. Now, give me some money or give me whatever I want.
And let's also talk about this for a minute. When they file these lawsuits, and the lawsuit in Carla Burkhart's case that she has filed is for defamation, and she's claiming that John and Kirk have defamed her. And just in filing that lawsuit, she is defaming them.
Oh yeah.
And that is a big this is the thing that bothers me the most about it. So here are these guys who are totally innocent. They have not done what she is claiming. All they have done is exercise their First Amendment rights to dig into a story where there's smoke, there's fire, and they found it, and they reported it. They did their job. She claims, I'm sorry, the dog is having some kind of mental meltdown. Shh, be quiet.
Watch out, Carla's gonna sue that dog with her wonderful work. I'm also just looking on this Griffin Williams law firm page still, their site. You know what their rates are, Megan? This just shows This shows you what shysters these people are. First of all, you can have this deal with them where you pay $199 a year retainer. Then it just costs $49 per consultation. I've never seen a law firm bill like that, that's ridiculous. Like, credible people do not operate this way.
No, that sounds like a $99 divorce.
Right, yeah. Consultations result in a small charge of $49. That's it.
$49? You can have your lawsuit for $49.95.
Right, and you just have to have a dingleberry represent you, like that, buffoon Joshua Fegans. So this
we need to find out what other lawsuits these people have filed, because I bet you there are some doozies in there.
I bet. I'm really curious. So I would love to know how to do that, how to look at what other lawsuits have this Joshua Fegans, and I think also this head of the firm, this Patrick Griffin. We need to look into him too, because he needs to take ownership of this too. Maybe he doesn't know full well what this Fegans is up to and what this Burkhart lawsuit's about. He needs to be in on it because that's his firm. It's his firm's name. They all should own this, and they should all have
take a class on strategic lawsuits against public participation and why it's illegal and why they should never have any part in it. Because clearly they do not know. If they do know what they're doing, then they should go to jail. If they don't know, then they need a class immediately. I also would like to, before we close out here, because we're almost finished, I would like to put out a call right now for anybody who has ever hired Hurricane Graphics to please contact us. Because we would like to know what kind of work Carla Burkhart did for you in the graphics design industry. She claims to have a company called Hurricane, and that's Herricane, like girl power Hurricane. Hurricane Graphics, she claims this is a company that she does work for people, and we can't find anybody she's done any work for other than the College of DuPage. So if you're out there and you have hired Carla Burkhart and her Hurricane Graphics, please contact us. We would love to see examples of her work, or even just some verification that this woman does have the business she claims to have.
And Megan, anybody who is just a good thinker and can think of ways to find any photos of stuff that she has done. I'd love to see examples of what $600,000 from the College of DuPage, what does that buy? What did that money go towards making? Because if she made something, it would be a physical thing that would still exist. And if it doesn't exist, then there must be pictures of it. How could you have taken $600,000 in public money? What did that go towards? It surely didn't just go to that lovely wig she has in that van that she's living in, apparently. Where did that money go? Or did that money go to send her in her...
Well, apparently it's time to go because the dog says so, and we're out of time anyway. So next time we will discuss more. Take care.